Part 21. The Strongest Husband of Dopo. Author, Hui Bai Xiong. Chapter 201. Since you have completed this task, shall we return to the sect now? Xian Chen frowned and asked Yaokai, since Yu Jianyuan has been killed, and the task can be regarded as indirectly completed. So it would be somewhat inappropriate to continue hanging out here. Yaokai hesitated for a moment, put away the orb containing the soul of Yu Jianyuan, then took Xian Chen's hand, showed a sweet smile and replied, since the mission of Yu Jianyuan has been successful, why don't we go to a nearby city to celebrate? For a moment. Yaokai, because of her powerful background, is called the Yaokai fairy by people in the upper realm of the heavenly palace. But such a woman is actually a fighting saint with terrifying strength. Seeing Yaokai's extremely excited look, Xian Chen didn't want to disturb the other person's mood by opening his mouth. Momo was held by Yaokai's hand and walked silently towards the nearby city. Along the way, Yaokai picked flowers and grass and ran to Xian Chen like a girl. Helping Yaokai wear a small pink flower, Yaokai turned around in front of Xian Chen and asked with a smile, "How is it? Does it look good?" Good-looking Xian Chen touched his nose. It was not unreasonable for this Yaokai to be called a girl. Although Yaokai may transform into a female warrior when facing the enemy. But if you are treating a friend, then he is definitely an extremely considerate little baby. After an unknown amount of time, the two of them were fighting and joking along the way, and finally saw a big city full of people coming and going. The gate of this city is guarded by several soldiers with fighting spirit strength. And some of these Doling soldiers are collecting admission fees. Do I still need to pay an entry fee to enter the city? Xian Chen asked doubtfully, looking at the pedestrians who paid the city entrance fee honestly, he suddenly felt speechless. It's not that Xian Chen feels sorry for the money, but that in such a barren place, there are still people who do such things, but they really have some attitude of being as high as the sky and the emperor is far away. Yaokai glanced at Xian Chen in confusion, but did not reply to Suankin's inquiry. As the two held hands, they gradually approached the city. Perhaps it was because Fairy Yaokai's pretty face and enchanting figure instantly attracted the attention of a large number of men with burning eyes. At the back of the queue, after the people in front of them paid their entrance fees, a crystal card with a limit of 10,000 gold coins appeared in Xian Chen's hand. Then he threw him into the arms of the soldier blocking the road with a calm expression. Looking at this crystal card, the soldier's eyes were always on Fairy Yaokai. Looking at the extremely vulgar expression of the soldiers, Yaokai Fairy's face clearly showed a bit of disgust. Wait a minute, you haven't paid enough for the entrance fee. According to your status, you must pay a fee of 10,000 per person. You only have 10,000 here, which is only enough for one person. The soldier touched his chin and spoke proudly. Hearing that he had to pay an extra 10,000 gold coins, Xian Chen frowned slightly and said doubtfully to the supporter, since you know that we have a special status, you should not only dare not collect it, but also go the extra mile. Could it be that you really don't know? How do you write the word death? You. The soldier did not expect that the young man in front of him would dare to talk back to him here. He immediately showed a fierce look and threatened Xian Chen, "Boy! Do you know who the master of this city is? Are you enough to argue with me like this? Let me tell you, if I say I am the city lord, I'm afraid you will pee on the spot." Faced with the endless ridicule of the soldier, Xian Chen was just about to reach out and slap him to death on the spot. The people queuing up behind them all opened their mouths to exhort. "Little brother, forget it. If you spend an extra 10,000, you will spend an extra 10,000. That's right, brother, spending an extra 10,000 yuan to save your life is the most important thing. The owner of the city is a branch clan leader of the Xiang family, don't offend rashly. The head of the Xiang family branch. It's the Xiang family again." Xian Chen looked at the soldier with some speechlessness, but Fairy Yaokai on the side suddenly covered her mouth and smiled softly. She said softly to the soldier who spoke openly, "Listen to them, you are from the Xiang family, so, has your city lord told you that your young master Xiang Mu, and that Xiang Tian are both dead?" "What? Xiang Mu and Xiang Tian are dead?" These people living in the upper world have naturally heard of Xiang Mansion's strength. And for people like Xiang Mu and Xiang Tian, it is naturally a must-talk topic after dinner. Now that this strange woman in front of them actually said such unbelievable words, of course they, the melon eaters, all looked shocked. But just when Fairy Yaokai said these words, the expression of the soldier who should have been arrogant was changing constantly. With cold sweat all over his body, he looked at Fairy Yaokai with a look of horror, apparently because their city lord had already told them what Fairy Yaokai said. The rest of the soldiers were also frightened. Under this pressure, the rude soldier respectfully handed the crystal card back to Xian Chen. Then he said with an apologetic look, "I am blind, I wonder where you two are from the Xiang family." Seeing the watchdog whose attitude changed drastically, the melon eaters felt the most complicated at the moment. Being able to cause the death of the young master of the Xiang Mansion and the leader of one side, this kind of thing can be said to be big news near Tiangong. Keep your eyes peeled sometimes, don't wait until something happens, to react. Xian Chen looked at the soldier with a mocking look on his face. With his current level of cultivation, dealing with such a small shrimp would be completely price-deprecating, so it was naturally impossible for Xian Chen to do such a ridiculous thing. Seeing Xian Chen and Fairy Yaokai walking into the city, the warriors wiped the cold sweat from their foreheads in fear. So under the gaze of those queuing up, I walked to a lounge chair nearby and lay down, as if I was much older. "Boss, what's wrong with you? Why are you so scared all of a sudden? Are those two guys really from our Xiang Mansion? Then why didn't we take out the items from the Xiang Mansion earlier?" A young soldier who was fanning the little leader spoke in confusion. Snapped. However, the little leader raised his hand and slapped the little soldier with an angry look. And he shouted angrily at the little soldier, "Damn it! Didn't you hear what the man said before? Don't wait until something happens to regret it. If you have the ability, go and ask him why he doesn't have a token." "I won't go anyway." Seeing the little leader's appearance, the little soldier raised his foot and kicked the recliner over on the spot. The little leader rolled on the ground. Seeing his subordinates doing such ridiculous things, he was so angry that he grabbed the chair on the ground and was about to smash it at the little soldier. At this critical moment, the little soldier suddenly resisted and roared at the leader who had been serving him for 2 years, with a venomous expression on his face, "Gu Xintang. I have tolerated you for 2 years, but I didn't expect you to do the same. A waste of life and fear of death. Isn't that just the identity of two people? I'll go by myself." As he said that, under the confused gazes of the melon-eating crowd, he frantically chased after Xian Chen and Yaokai Fairy's retreating figures. The little boss, who was called Gu Xintang, gave himself a slap in the face, and immediately chose to run away without saying anything. After all, if the man and woman were really from the Xiang Mansion, it would undoubtedly be a mental breakdown for gatekeepers like them. The Strongest Husband of Dopo. Author, Hui Bai Xiong. Chapter 202. Stop. Your identity must be verified. The soldier actually ran to verify the identities of Xian Chen and Fairy Yaokai. Looking at the soldiers who didn't understand the rules, Xian Chen raised his palm and pressed down. The soldiers who were chasing Xian Chen and the two exploded into a cloud of blood mist on the spot. This sudden situation frightened many people. It's true that there are people who dare to take action rashly on this street, but it can be said that it is unheard of to dare to take action against people from the Xiang family. After Xian Chen killed the soldier, the passers-by also gave way. After all, this kind of person who could offend the Xiang Mansion had indirectly proved that they were not someone they could provoke at will. It didn't take long for the noise in the street to return to its original state. Even though someone had just taken action against the people in that mansion, as far as these passers-by were concerned, they all maintained a nonchalant attitude. "Master, are you interested in participating in this auction? It is organized by our Lu family." While Xian Chen and Fairy Yaokai were wandering on the street, a young man in a black light robe cheerfully stretched out his hand to intercept them. Seeing that this young man had the strength of a great fighting master at such a young age, Xian Chen hesitated for a moment and looked at Fairy Yaokai next to him. Seeing Fairy Yaokai nodding slightly, Xian Chen immediately threw 1,000 gold coins to the other party as a reward, indicating that he would lead the way. "Eh? Isn't that Lu Chuang from the Lu mansion? Why are he with those two people? Are they all from the same family?" "I don't know, but the Lu mansion and the Xiang mansion have had a feud for hundreds of years. If that's true, then it's easy to understand why they took action against the guards of the Xiang mansion just now." "I don't think so. I heard that people from the Lu mansion picked up a stone tablet of an ancient ruins, but I don't know what is in the tablet, but based on the publicity, it seems that the tablet contains a map that can lead to the ancient ruins." The passers-by talked about it one after another, and Xian Chen and Fairy Yaokai also listened to it. Not long after, under the leadership of this young man, Xian Chen and the others finally arrived outside the extremely noisy auction house. Looking at the long queue, Xian Chen frowned and asked the young man, "Brother, since we have given you benefits, why don't you open a back door for us?" When the young man heard Xian Chen's question, his expression was extremely abnormal. The somewhat embarrassed young man looked around and then vaguely explained, "This is the rule in queuing, I can't help it. But there is a shortcut, you can try it." The young man explained to Xian Chen, but it was obvious that when he said this, he did not take Xian Chen seriously. After all, there are many people in the upper world who offer rewards of 1,000 gold coins, so for a common man like a young man, they certainly won't pay too much attention to someone like Xian Chen, who is similar to a family son. "What shortcut?" Xian Chen looked at the young man's expression of embarrassment and raised a dangerous arc at the corner of his mouth. The young man did not expect that Xian Chen would continue to ask, and said impatiently, "Well, there is no way, as long as you can come up with enough consignment treasures to support the auction. Then I, Lu Chuang, will take you in immediately without any hesitation." Lu Chuang patted his chest and promised that when he saw his appearance, Xian Chen didn't talk too much to him and said immediately, "Please lead the way. If I can't bring out a suitable treasure, I, Xian Chen, will do whatever it takes. Do with it as you wish." Lu Chuang glanced at Xian Chen suspiciously, then at Fairy Yaokai beside Xian Chen, and then replied with great reluctance, "Okay, even for the sake of the pretty lady next to you, I will reluctantly take you with me. Get in." I like hearing this." Fairy Yaokai covered her mouth and chuckled, making those around her look like pigs. Under the leadership of Lu Chuang, the two of them walked into the auction house unimpeded. Looking at the sparsely populated auction house, Lu Chuang rubbed his nose awkwardly. "The auction hasn't started yet. It's normal now. Let's go and take you to the treasure appraisal pavilion." Lu Chuang led the two of them to the hall with the name Jianbao Pavilion written on it. Looking at the consignment staff who were making appraisals, a beautiful woman wearing light-colored translucent clothes walked over with graceful steps. "Lu Chuang, do you two need to sell anything on consignment?" the woman asked with a smile on her face. Although this woman's appearance was indeed good, she still looked bleak in front of Fairy Yaokai. Lu Chuang scratched his head in embarrassment and could only nod symbolically. "I wonder what you two want to sell on consignment," the woman asked with a smile. Xian Chen hesitated for a moment before replying calmly, "A top-level weapon at the heaven level." Just when Xian Chen finished speaking, those who were still talking became eerily quiet for an instant. Everyone looked at Xian Chen with doubts in addition to shock. And the good-looking receptionist was obviously shocked and confused by Xian Chen's words. Fairy Yaokai beside her stretched out her hand and gently pulled Xian Chen's clothes. With a blush on her face, she probably didn't expect that Xian Chen would say such words on such an occasion. It's not that there aren't any top-level heaven-level weapons, but even if there are, they will definitely be the treasures of the clan and clan. How much a suitable weapon can increase the attack power of a powerful person depends absolutely on the grade of the weapon used by that person. With legend. If a top-level heaven-level weapon is used by a person with the strength of a half-emperor, then that person's strength will be greatly improved to the level of Do Emperor. Although it is only an increase, in front of people of the same level, it is absolutely a complete crushing situation. The woman was shocked for a moment, and then she came to her senses and continued to ask Xian Chen, "Master, top-level weapons at the heaven level cannot be put up for auction casually. If your parents know about it, our Lu family will not be afraid, but it will inevitably cause unnecessary trouble. If you really want to auction it, you can auction other items," the waitress explained to Xian Chen with an awkward but polite smile. "Haha, since you are not willing to accept my consignment, then I have to go to other places to look," Xian Chen said extremely calmly. When the waitress saw that the young man was so calm, she felt a trace of uneasiness in her heart. "Good hunch. Sir, please wait a moment, because the items that the master needs to auction are too huge. I will forgive you, my dear, to ask the master of the pavilion for instructions." The maid wiped the cold sweat from her forehead. Offending a person whose family is very likely to have a top-level weapon at the heaven level, but not a smart thing to do. The maid left in a hurry, and the scene of family discussions in the hall returned to the previous scene. In a room filled with the aroma of medicine, an old man was squatting on the ground making soup. Only when he heard the rapid footsteps, he turned his head and looked out the door. Looking at the hurried waitress, the old man asked doubtfully, "Liner, why are you in such a panic?" The waitress, who was called Liner's face turned red from holding back, but she still replied respectfully to the old man, "Old Wu, someone wants to consign top-grade heaven-level weapons." "What?" The old man's tiger body trembled, and the spoon he was holding in his hand collapsed into two pieces instantly when he was shocked. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Strongest Husband of Dopo. Author, Hui Bai Xiong. Chapter 203. Top Heaven Level Weapon. Liner, you have to know that this kind of thing is no joke. This kind of weapon is usually a treasure of the Zhenzong clan. It can be put up for auction at will. Regardless of whether it is true or false, whether it can be collected or not is another matter. Mr. Wu replied to the waitress Liner with a shocked expression. After all, it is really shocking to suddenly hear that someone wants to auction top-level weapons. Since Mr. Wu can work in the auction house, he naturally knows the weight of this top-level weapon. If the source is clean and will not affect the Lu family, then it will be accepted. But if it has an impact, it will definitely be an extremely unbalanced thing. The maid Liner stood quietly, looking at Mr. Wu, who asked about her, but she couldn't find any words to reply to him for a while. Liner hesitated for a moment before continuing to say to Mr. Wu, "Mr. Wu, what should we do about this matter? Let's not talk about the truth or falsehood. After all, the guests are still waiting in the lobby, and the auction is less than half an hour away." Mr. Wu glanced at Liner speechlessly, and had no choice but to wave his hand to her to let Xian Chen and Yaokai ferry in. Not long after, under the leadership of the maid Liner, Xian Chen and Fairy Yaokai finally walked into the room that so many people wanted to enter but could not. Looking at the young man with delicate features and handsome appearance, while the woman was born elegant and good-looking, the first impression given to Mr. Wu was that he came from a large family or a large sect. But when Mr. Wu saw clearly the cultivation of these two people, he was shocked on the outside and tender on the inside. Although this young man is a junior dozon at a young age, Looking at the aura revealed by the opponent, he feels as if he is deliberately hiding something. The woman in the white dress next to her had the aura of a fighting saint with 4-star strength. Looking at this scene, Mr. Wu couldn't help but take a breath. With such a level of cultivation, your family background must be considered to be among the top 10 in the entire upper realm heavenly palace, right? Mr. Wu expressed his opinion. Even in his eyes, the young man and woman in his eyes are young, but if he can really sell such a top-level weapon of the heaven level, then the family background cannot be underestimated. Waitress Liner was extremely excited when she saw that Mr. Wu had such a high opinion of these two young men. After all, if these two people really auction items in their auction house, the commission she can get will definitely be a very considerable income. Xian Chen was silent for a moment, looking at the old man named Mr. Wu, and then gently touched his ring. Then several swords exuding extreme chill appeared in Mr. Wu's eyes instantly. Looking at these swords with different shapes, even someone like Mr. Wu who possesses the 7 stars of the fighting saint feels like he is ready to move. Elder Wu, who only felt his mouth was dry, was well informed and could naturally tell that the grades of these swords were at the heavenly level. People who can take out so many heaven-level swords at once can no longer be judged by Mr. Wu's current knowledge. Young master really intends to auction it. Seeing the young man who was able to take out so many heaven-level swords, Mr. Wu finally believed that these two people might really be here to auction them. Yes, Xian Chen smiled faintly. With his system, he didn't mean that he would not be able to get it, let alone a heaven-level weapon, even a holy level or immortal level weapon. What's more, the sword Xian Chen himself uses is a weapon with god-level strength, so naturally, it is very easy to understand that Xian Chen can leapfrog and kill. These swords, even one of them is enough to shock the entire Tiangong. If it is auctioned at this time, it may fetch a good price, but in that case, I am afraid that our Lu family will also offend other powers. So I thought it would be better to store the sword here first, wait for our Lu mansion to promote it for a while, and then auction it. Xian Chen frowned slightly. He had to say that Mr. Wu, as a businessman, really knew how to do business. In this way, it not only improved the strength of their Lu family in Tiangong, but also indirectly proved that they had the ability to do business. A superpower that auctions heavenly weapons at will. Fairy Yaokai beside her frowned and looked at Xian Chen who had not yet spoken, so she said seriously to Mr. Wu, "We are from the Star Sect, and this is my junior brother Xian Chen." Star Sect. Mr. Wu was so shocked that he broke into cold sweat. After all, this kind of sect is often controlled by large forces. At least, with the power of their Lu family, they definitely wouldn't dare to provoke such a behemoth at will. However, Mr. Wu also indirectly began to admire this young man. After all, the most indispensable thing in Xian Chen sect was the incredible behemoth. "Who is that girl?" Mr. Wu asked awkwardly. Seeing Fairy Yaokai's expression change slightly, he hurriedly continued to explain, "Girl, don't get me wrong. As an auctioneer, I have reason to ask at such a time. Mr. Wu possesses the strength of the 7-star fighting saint. Being able to lower his arrogance and chat with two juniors like this is already the biggest concession for him." Fairy Yaokai did not intend to get angry with the other party. She hesitated for a moment and then said, "Yaokai." "Fairy Yaokai?" Liner looked at the woman who spoke in shock. She was thinking about how this situation could suddenly happen in the city, but she didn't expect that it was someone from the Star Sect. And there are rumors that the master of Fairy Yaokai is a super venerable person who has the greatest potential to enter the realm of Do Di. Fighting saints may be a bad species in Tiangong, but as for fighting emperors, they are definitely still rare. Haha, if that's the case, I'm relieved, old man, but I don't know what young master Xian Chen is thinking about." Elder Wu let out a long sigh of relief. If he can let people from the Star Sect attend the auction, even if they don't buy anything, then that's fine. It is definitely the best help for the Lu family. After all, This kind of super sect always maintains neutral behavior regarding everything. Then let's auction an intermediate heaven-level weapon first. Xianchen said, and took out a three-pointed two-edged sword. This three-pointed, two-edged sword exudes the aura of a king. It is obviously owned by a fierce general who conquers the battlefield all the year round. This three-pointed two-edged sword is indeed good, but from the little old man's point of view, this weapon must be something similar to an imitation, right? Mr. Wu showed a discerning expression, but Xianchen smiled slightly, as if he had taken it out. The three-pointed two-edged sword is exactly what he said. Haha, actually it doesn't matter whether this is a replica or not. The important thing is that the two of you can become our honored guests. It is the best gift for our entire Lu family. Mr. Wu explained with a smile. As the saying goes, don't hit the smiling person. A man of Mr. Wu's age will naturally not be stupid enough to have unnecessary friction with someone with such a terrifying strength background. How about this three-pointed two-edged sword? The little old man decided not to charge any commission, just treat it as the first meeting gift for our cooperation. Mr. Wu said with a serious face, if we can really achieve this cooperation with Xianchen and Fairy Yaokai, then there will definitely be no less cooperation in the future. The Strongest Husband of Dopo. Author, Hui Bai Xiong. Chapter 204. Liner, hurry up and arrange for the distinguished guests to sit down. Mr. Wu did not respond to the replies from Xianchen and the others, and immediately spoke decisively, signaling the maid Liner to quickly arrange VIP boxes for Xianchen and Fairy Yaokai. Liner reacted, hurriedly walked to Xianchen and bent slightly. Under this arc, it can be said that her good figure can be seen at a glance. The expression of Fairy Yaokai beside her changed slightly, but she was a little displeased but did not say anything. It was obvious that she was already accustomed to this maid's behavior. Master Xianchen, Fairy Yaokai, please. Liner said respectfully. Under her arrangement, the two of them walked out of the treasure appraisal pavilion and were arranged into an independent box on the third floor. Looking at the trembling Lu Chuang, Liner warned him, you almost offended the person who shouldn't be offended. If it weren't for your father's dedication to the Lu family, I'm afraid you would have been assigned to another area. Picking up trash. Lu Chuang was so frightened that his vision went dark. After all, being assigned to pick up trash was the greatest shame for him. If he knew the identity and background of Xianchen and Fairy Yaokai, I am afraid that the previous thing would not have happened. After Liner's scolding, Lu Chuang walked into the box with a guilty look on his face. Looking at Xianchen and Yaokai Fairy, Lu Chuang gritted his teeth and knelt on the ground with a thud. He kowtowed so hard that his forehead bled. With a look of regret on his face, he said extremely apologetically to Xianchen, Master Xianchen, Fairy Yaokai, I'm sorry, I shouldn't be like this. If I knew if it were you, I wouldn't dare even if you gave me 10 courages. Lu Chuang was so frightened that he almost cried. You can imagine that the identity of Xianchen and Fairy Yaokai would be a terrible and fatal blow to a little person like him. Seeing Lu Chuang who was so frightened, Fairy Yaokai raised her hand and used her fighting spirit energy to help Lu Chuang, who was kneeling on the ground, pull up steadily. Seeing this situation, Liner hurriedly supported Lu Chuang and said with a comforting face, okay, since the distinguished guests have chosen to forgive you, you should keep your eyes open in the future and don't do anything casual again messing with people you shouldn't mess with. Regarding Liner's reply, Lu Chuang was naturally confused, but due to his humble status, he had to listen to Liner's warning silently. Hey, gentlemen, this third floor is arranged for you. At this moment, a flattering voice sounded outside, and then several young men in black clothes passed by the door. One of the young men intentionally glanced at the box where Xianchen was, but when he saw Fairy Yaokai, the young man stopped hurriedly and said angrily, Yaokai. You are here. Yaokai? Fairy Yaokai? Those young people stopped one after another, looking at Fairy Yaokai with complicated eyes. When Liner saw those people, She hurriedly said, "Everyone, although this is an auction house and everyone can come in, don't forget. The owner here is named Lu. Lu Lin. Are you teaching Xiangfei how to do things?" the ferocious-looking young man asked angrily. The guard named Lu Lin covered her mouth and smiled, pretending to apologize. "Our master said that the visitor is a guest, but if he is someone who intends to cause trouble, then since he is an enemy, our Lu family will naturally very willing to accept it." Xiangfei was caught off guard by Lu Lin's reply. No matter how angry he was, he had to swallow his bad breath at this moment. After all, what Lu Lin said is not unreasonable. If he insists on causing trouble here, it will definitely be a very troublesome thing for these people. "Forget it, Brother Fei, why are you so angry with the maid?" "Brother Fei, although our two families have grudges, today was specially arranged by the clan leader, we can't let it fall into our hands." Someone spoke to exhort him, and Xiangfei reluctantly left. Xianchen frowned slightly and asked Lu Lin doubtfully, "What's going on? Who is that guy?" "Haha, I'm sorry, Mr. Xianchen, they are members of the Xiang family, because the auction house is a public place, so even if they are members of the Xiang family, our Lu family has to choose to accept them in." Lu Lin smiled and explained that after all, what she said was not unreasonable. Even if the two families had grievances, they had to choose temporary cooperation in the face of interests. "People from the Xiang mansion? Haha, no wonder they have such a big opinion against you, it's them being able to have such a big opinion against Fairy Yaokai, Xianchen would never let go of any relationship." Fairy Yaokai rolled her eyes at Xianchen, but she didn't pay attention to those people just now. As the number of people increased, the hall was already filled with people. A few more people walked up to the third floor, but when they saw Fairy Yaokai, they walked in directly. The leader had a handsome face, and his eyes were full of doting when he saw Fairy Yaokai. "Junior sister Yaokai, I didn't expect to meet you here." The young man's doting expression made Fairy Yaokai feel uncomfortable all over. Xianchen sat quietly next to Fairy Yaokai, looking at the young man with dull eyes. Seeing that Fairy Yaokai didn't pay attention to him, the young man asked Xianchen, "Who are you? Why are you sitting next to her? Who I am is not important. What is important is who you are, senior brother. Lin Fengjia? What do you want to do?" "Tell you, he is also our inner disciple." Fairy Yaokai frowned slightly and spoke. Lin Fengjia was obviously a little surprised when he heard this. Seeing that this guy who only had the strength of a junior dozun was actually an inner disciple, he was naturally a little surprised. Is he an inner disciple? Or a junior dozun? Don't lie. As soon as Lin Fengjia finished speaking, he saw Xianchen coming out with an identity token unique to the disciples of the Xin Chen sect. Looking at the golden identity token, Lin Fengjia's expression instantly changed from mocking to embarrassed, as if he had eaten shit. "Are there any doubts?" Xianchen blinked. Even though Lin Fengjia has the strength of a 5-star Do Sheng, in Xianchen's eyes, he is still like garbage. Lin Fengjia swallowed and spit. Anyone who can become an inner disciple has a strong background. Looking at this person who can have such close contact with Yaokai, known as the Ice Beauty, even he is a fighting saint, and he has to endure it at this moment. You have nothing to be proud of. This time you are here to participate in an auction arranged by the section. You better not fight among yourself, otherwise even if I don't cause trouble for you, the elders of the sect will give you good things to eat." Lin Fengjia was dissatisfied with Suankin's disrespect for him and immediately threatened him, hinting that he should not be too arrogant. "So you are Xianchen?" Boom. At this moment, someone suddenly roared at the door, and then extremely violent fighting energy burst out at this moment. The Strongest Husband of Dopo. Author, Hui Bai Xiong. Chapter 205. There was a roar. Then everyone turned to look outside the door in confusion. Looking at the young man who called himself Xiangfei, Suanken's expression changed slightly, but he didn't panic at all. Lin Fengzhi looked at the irritable young man, raised his eyebrows, and said displeasedly, "Who are you? Dare to make a scene in front of our Xin Chen sect? I don't care what your sect is. Kill my brother. Even if the King of Heaven comes today, it won't work." Xiangfei was furious, and immediately took out a sharp sword, held it tightly in his hand, and rushed into the box. Lin Fengzhi looked at the irascible young man with just a look. Several disciples around him immediately charged away and surrounded Xiangfei in a circle. The Xiang family members who were following Xiangfei also hurried over after hearing the noise outside. For a while, the hall was in chaos and noisy. The internal guards at the auction house looked at this situation and felt a little at a loss. Lu Lin frowned and glanced at Lu Chuang beside her. Lu Chuang immediately walked to the back wall and groped on the wall for a long time. So he opened the secret door and walked in. The auctioneers below all looked surprised. None of those people on the third floor are extremely noble. To be able to make a fuss at this time is not just a matter of deep hatred, but also a matter of revenge for killing one's father. "How dare you stop me?" Xiangfei roared with a ferocious face, and became even more furious when he saw these Xin Chen sect disciples holding weapons. He wished he could kill all these guys. At this moment, he was so angry that he only wanted to kill Xian Chen so as to avenge his lost cousin. "So what if I stop you? He's just a 3-star fighting saint. Ask yourself, who can beat us?" Lin Fengzhi said with contempt. Obviously he really didn't take Xiangfei seriously. If Lin Fengzhi was willing, I'm afraid Xiangfei would be defeated by Lin Fengzhi in an instant. The expressions of those Xiang family members at this moment are also extremely ugly. Relying on the background of the Xiang family, they have always been domineering and domineering. Now that they met people from the Xin Chen sect, some Xiang people were naturally murmuring in their hearts. "Xian Chen. If you're a man, get out of here. What's the point of hiding behind a woman? And you Yaokai? You are called a fairy. I think you are a poisonous woman. For your own happiness, you actually killed your fiancé. Bitch. Hit me. Beat me hard. Beat me to death." Lin Fengzhi could not stand being ridiculed like this, not to mention that Fairy Yaokai had already been regarded as the best wife in Lin Fengzhi's eyes. Naturally, Lin Fengzhi couldn't stand being ridiculed like this. Those disciples said the same thing and punched Xiangfei crazily. Those Xiang family members also joined in the melee when they saw people from the Star sect taking action. Too fancy combat. It may be very familiar to those onlookers, but today's battle is a serious fight. After all, often the simplest and fastest way is not to use any fancy moves. And often the way to deal with the enemy is the simplest and most direct form of fist fighting. I don't dare to see this. I don't dare to see it. This is immoral and immoral. This, no one is stopping this, no one is stopping. The onlookers sighed with emotion, and even Fairy Yaokai frowned. Looking at the fighting saints fighting together, I just felt a little embarrassed. Stop. Boom. Just as those people were struggling together, an extremely violent figure appeared in mid-air instantly. I saw him raise his palm and press it down. Those who struggled together were separated in an instant. The visitor took a closer look and saw that it was Mr. Wu, the master of Jianbao Pavilion who had communicated with Xian Chen not long ago. Mr. Wu now has murderous intent written all over his face. However, when Mr. Wu noticed Xian Chen in the box, he hurriedly put away his violent aura. Stepping into the box and looking at Xian Chen sitting on the chair, Mr. Wu felt mixed emotions in his heart. Mr. Haha, Mr. Wu, that's what you see. Those people want to cause trouble for me. I don't know what they think. Xian Chen said calmly. Mr. Wu looked at the scene, his face changed slightly, and he was silent for a moment. Then he said to those people, "What do you guys want to do? Have you forgotten that this is an auction house? Don't forget that the owner of this auction house is the Liu family. If you think you are good, why don't you come and try to provoke me? Mr. Wu said with a strong face, and it can be said that his words were very ruthless. If it were an ordinary family, they might be very wary of what Mr. Wu said, but none of these people have a very strong background. Lin Fengzhi saw that Mr. Wu and Xian Chen seemed to have a good relationship, so he pretended to apologize. These people are bullying my junior brother. As a senior brother, I naturally have to teach this outsider a lesson, but I still need to remind you, don't forget it, we Xin Chen sect people are often the kind of beings who don't like to suffer losses when we do things. Listening to this man announcing his family status and that he was from the Star sect, Mr. Wu's expression changed instantly and became extremely embarrassing. After all, no one would be able to accept this situation. This feeling of being pressed on top of your head is really too unacceptable. And Xiangfei is also a well-informed person, so he can naturally see that Mr. Wu's identity and background are absolutely special. Otherwise, the power of the Star sect would never be so low-key to a vulnerable group. Xiangfei was silent for a moment, then clasped his fists towards Mr. Wu and said, "Your Excellency must have misunderstood. We are just idle and bored." Listening to this crude excuse, Mr. Wu naturally knew that this was just to give each other a step down. Ignoring Xiangfei's words, he continued to look at Xian Chen and said seriously, "Mr. Xian Chen, although we are in a cooperative relationship, I still hope that you will not delay our business." "Haha, Mr. Wu, don't worry, Xian Chen, have never been the kind of person who always looks for trouble. But if someone insists on making trouble for me, I can't tolerate it all the time, right?" Xian Chen replied with a smile. This was an angry reply. Old Wu's beard was almost crooked. Mr. Wu, after a moment of silence, looking at the people who had calmed down for the time being, he glanced at the waitress standing on the stage below. The waitress understood, clapped her hands, showed an extremely charming expression, and said softly to those participating in the auction, "Everyone, the auction will continue to begin." Those who participated in the auction looked at each other in confusion. Anyone on the third floor who did not have a special status could get into a fight over a disagreement, which was not something they could provoke at will. The maid was a little embarrassed when she saw the scene. After hesitating for a moment, she continued, "Let's just invite the real master." She raised her hand, and then a stone tablet, carried by two people, gradually appeared in everyone's eyes. Those people looked at the sudden appearance of the stone tablet with different expressions. After all, the secret of this stone tablet made people feel emotionally out of control. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Strongest Husband of Dopo. Author, Hui Baixiang. Chapter 206. Everyone must be tired of waiting, right? After all, our auction can be said to be a waste this time. It took a lot of hard work to obtain this piece of stone tablet that is said to be an ancient relic. The guard said with a gentle face. He didn't know what the status of this maid was in the auction house. Ever since Fairy Yaokai appeared to comfort her, it really relieved a lot of the atmosphere full of gunpowder. Those bidders who participated in the auction, their eyes lit up after hearing the stone tablet of the ancient ruins. They were obviously full of expectations for this stone tablet. The maid did not appease these people. After talking about the stone tablet, she raised her hand and saw the huge stone tablet carried by two guards slowly walking towards the stage. Because this stone tablet was covered with a piece of cloth, it was difficult to see clearly what the stone tablet looked like, but since its appearance, it has obviously attracted the attention of many people. Even the few people who were fighting on the third floor were looking at it with curiosity. After all, they came here this time because of the secrets in this stone tablet. If they can get a glimpse of the secrets in this stone tablet, then the gains that their force can gain are absolutely inevitable. Because this stone tablet is too special, after discussions between senior management, we decided that the starting price of this stone tablet will not be calculated, but the winner will be able to share the benefits of this stone tablet with us. Of course, if you want to bid at the starting price, then the starting price of this stone tablet is 10 million gold coins. 10 million gold coins. Of course, everyone present was there just to watch the show, so they must have felt a little suffocated by the tens of millions of gold coins. However, the other slightly wealthy families were also frowning at this moment. If the starting price is 10 million, then the subsequent price is definitely the kind of plan for a fight between gods. 20 million, although I know it will definitely be suppressed immediately, but at least it will not affect my participation in such a sacred auction. You talk a lot of nonsense. For 50 million, my Lee family is willing to explore the way for the big guys on the second and third floors. Since we've mentioned the second and third floors, I think everyone knows it, so let's go with 80 million. Although I know it's impossible, it doesn't affect my bidding. The clan leaders sitting in the hall spoke one after another. It didn't take long for the price to rise to 180 million. Such huge data, let alone over 100 million, even over 10 million, such a terrifying price is enough to make any empire in Dochi continent unable to bear it for a while. Seeing those people's starting prices, the guests sitting on the second floor frowned. Just like those who sit in the hall, where you sit actually determines your background. Well, some people lamented and wanted to refuse to bid, but everyone was here. If they didn't participate, it would inevitably affect their status. The guests sitting on the second floor were in the most complicated mood at the moment. If they were sitting in the lobby, then it would be okay to follow the excitement, but sitting on the second floor, this feeling of being mixed in between the lobby and the third floor, I'm afraid it's the hardest thing to enjoy. 210 million, if the auction can be successful, our Mu family is willing to cooperate with your government to reveal the secrets inside this stone tablet. A middle-aged man suddenly walked to the balcony and shouted the price below. His appearance also indirectly proved that those in the hall could stop the performance. Someone on the second floor has made a price, so naturally those sitting forces cannot just choose to give in. 230 million. Our Leng family's background is the star section. I hope you can give us some face and let our Leng family get this stone tablet. A beautiful woman with stunning looks also walked up to the balcony. Her appearance instantly attracted a lot of attention. After all, families that have a relationship with the star sect are often those with a very good background. However, it is an auction after all, so it is naturally impossible for anyone to really choose to give in at this time, not to mention that the people from the star sect are on the third floor. What this woman said is undoubtedly telling those people from the star sect on the third floor that they are cold. The heart of the family still belongs to the Xin Chen sect. I hate this feeling of being threatened the most. What happened to the star sect? Have you all forgotten the rules of this auction? Naturally, this can be put up for auction, and the one who can get it will get it. Regardless of whether the people from the star sect are here, even if they are here, my Long family will still have to pay 250 million today. 250 million. Some of the clan leaders sitting in the hall were filled with hatred. After all, for these families, even if they really have the ability to fight, if the stone tablet cannot be revealed and causes trouble instead, then these gold coins cannot be used to eliminate disasters at will. 280 million, since the Long family has said so, then my Mu family is willing to pay a higher price. After all, this amount of money is within the scope of our family's ability to accept it. Who are the people from the Mu family? Xiangfei frowned. He didn't expect that the people from the Mu family would be so generous. What he didn't expect was that so far, these people on the third floor were no one chose to speak. That's Mu Lingshan, the patriarch of the Mu family. I heard that he has a cooperation project with our Xiang family, so the assets are quite strong, Someone told Xiangfei the identity and background of the Mu family, and Xiangfei nodded calmly after hearing this. After all, if there is a cooperative relationship with the Xiang family, and the people on the third floor do not speak, then this so-called stone tablet, considering the strength of the Xiang family, they can definitely get a share of the pie. However, Xiangfei is destined to be disappointed. A disciple of the star sect walked up to the beauty of the Leng family and whispered a few words in her ear. The eyes of the beauty named Leng immediately emitted an extremely strange light. 300 million, the beauty surnamed Leng shouted the price, and Mu Lingshan was immediately startled and staggered, and even the people in the hall were frightened by this wealth and were so fidgety. What's more, he only felt a little numb on his scalp. Mu Lingshan could naturally tell that this was someone from the Xin Chen sect who wanted to help. He was immediately embarrassed and miserable. After all, if the Xiang family didn't come forward to help at this time, then the Mu family's face could be said to be completely wiped out. Even the man surnamed Long was hesitant to speak at this moment. After all, he was just temporarily blinded by anger. Now that he really sees the people of Xin Chen sect, it is naturally impossible to really anger such a terrifying statue. Exist. The faces of the Xiang family instantly turned ugly. Xiangfei winked at the young man next to him. The young man beside him understood, so he looked at the maid in the hall and shouted to her, "Our Xiang family is willing to pay 400 million gold coins. After all, for us as far as the Xiang family is concerned, if someone insists on bringing disgrace to our Xiang family, it is impossible for our Xiang family to just let him go." Mu Lingshan looked at the third floor with a grateful expression. The balcony on the second floor was much longer than that on the third floor, so that when he raised his head, he could communicate face to face with Xiangfei and the others. Xiangfei glanced at Mu Lingshan with a smile, as if to comfort him. 500 million, I will not only make you miserable today until the auction is over, but I will also shit on your head. You. Just when Xiangfei was enjoying the admiring and jealous eyes with a proud look on his face, someone from the star sect not far away suddenly started shouting. The Strongest Husband of Dopo. Author, Hui Bai Xiong. Chapter 207. I didn't expect you to be this kind of person. I'm speechless. I've never seen such a person before. Fortunately, you come from a famous sect like Xin Chen section. How come you can't even think straight when you talk? This kind of person is crazy. To be honest, I would become a Buddha when I meet this kind of person. Are all people in the Xin Chen sect like this? Oh my God, I simply can't believe, this is what a big sect can say. Those people started to complain one after another, and Xian Chen looked at Lin Fengjia, whose face turned livid for a moment, and smiled a little confused. Lin Fengjia's face was very ugly. When he noticed that Xian Chen was also laughing at him, he said with a pretended anger, "You know how to laugh, don't forget, you are also a member of the Xin Chen section." Mr. Wu was the most embarrassed. He originally wanted to have a good relationship with a behemoth like Xin Chen section. If the situation continues to develop like this, he can guarantee that if Xian Chen is unhappy, it will most likely affect him. Wishful thinking. Mr. Wu briefly said a few words to Xian Chen, then walked up the stairs to the auction platform. His appearance brought his eyes back. Mr. Wu hesitated for a moment, then pretended to be serious and said, "If no one continues, if you participate in the auction, then the stone tablet this time will be obtained by the star sect at the auction." As soon as Mr. Wu finished speaking, the faces of those people became extremely ugly. Sitting on the third floor were not only the Xin Chen sect and the Xiang family, but also other forces. They were originally watching a show. Now that they heard that the stone tablet was most likely to be auctioned off by the Xin Chen sect, the other big guys on the third floor were naturally somewhat unbearable. 600 million, children are fighting among themselves, so let your parents come over for things like auction. If any of your parents came over, we, Sword Tomb, might give you face, but not now. After all, this stone tablet is too important to us. Are all the people from Sword Tomb here? Mr. Wu looked at the third floor with a shocked expression. Although he was the master of the treasure appraisal pavilion, he never asked about the matters at the auction. If it weren't for people like Xian Chen, I'm afraid he wouldn't be able to do anything in this life. Will appear here. People from Jian Tomb. Xian Chen was slightly startled, but the word Jian Tomb was somewhat familiar. Although he had never heard of it, he always felt as if he had heard it somewhere. Jian Tomb is a superpower in the upper world, on an equal footing with our star section, although they are not very common, but according to the investigation by our star sex secret agents, their Jian Tomb very likely already has a terrifying existence like Do Emperor. Do De? Listening to Fairy Yaokai's explanation, Xian Chen frowned, then smiled at Fairy Yaokai and asked, then do we have a Do De in our stars? Faced with Suankan's inquiry, Fairy Yaokai was silent for a moment, hesitated for a while, and then continued to reply, currently our Xin Chen sect only has the sect leader Shi Daodi, but if Master can succeed in her cultivation, perhaps our Xin Chen sect will very likely there's a second one. Do De. This kind of terrifying existence can easily destroy the Do Chi continent. Unexpectedly, in this upper realm of Tiangong, as long as it can become such a huge force, it is very likely that one or two Do Emperors will appear. Looking at Xian Chen, who was silent, Yaokai Fairy smiled sweetly, reached out and patted Xian Chen on the shoulder, blinked her beautiful eyes, and comforted Xian Chen, but don't worry, I believe that with your talent, if you use your heart, if you practice, you will definitely have the opportunity to reach the level of Do Emperor. Fairy Yaokai comforted Xian Chen, and the look in her eyes said everything. Xian Chen smiled lightly. He didn't want to answer the topic of Fairy Yaokai. After all, whether he could successfully cultivate to the level of Do Emperor was not something he could explain clearly in a few sentences. The people from Jian Tomb offered a price of 600 million. This price is not to say very high, but if you are willing to spend money, then there is still a chance. Senior brother Lin, what should we do? Someone frowned and asked Lin Fengjia, and Lin Fengjia naturally felt deeply afraid. As a disciple of the Star Sect, he had naturally heard about the legendary terrifying force of Sword Tomb. As the people from Jian Tomb shouted, even Xiang Fei and the guys had to be honest at this moment. After all, Jian Tomb is the kind of force that only operates in the dark. After all, there is a saying that it is easy to hide from open guns and hard to prevent hidden arrows. Just when the silent Xiang Fei was about to give up, Xian Chen, who had been silent, finally stood up. 700 million, you can't say that you are Sword Tomb, our Xin Chen sect is afraid of you. Xian Chen directly raised the price to 700 million, this price is enough to make many people envious. And even Mr. Wu had a knowing smile on his face after seeing Xian Chen speak. He had originally doubted Xian Chen's personal background, but now that he dared to raise the price with the people from Jian Tomb, he naturally admired him a lot. Haha, newborn calves are not afraid of tigers, young man who can do it? 800 million, I still say the same thing, this stone tablet is extremely important, I advise you to give it to me before I get angry. The man was obviously a little angry, after all the power of Sword Tomb is too terrifying in this upper world. Can I still be afraid of you? 850 million, Xian Chen said sarcastically, even though he didn't take the people of Jian Tomb seriously. This kind of price increase was comparable to face, and even Xiang Fei was worried about Xian Chen at this moment. Dust is full of admiration. I finally know why Xiang Mu died, I don't dare to confront the people from Jian Tomb anyway. Xiang Fei looked at Xian Chen with admiration. After all, at this time, Xian Chen also indirectly is to feel proud for these people. Lin Fengjia looked at Xian Chen with a strange look on his face. He had indeed hated Xian Chen before, but after experiencing this incident, he naturally looked at Xian Chen with new eyes. Although Fairy Yaokai is worried about Xian Chen, she is not afraid that Xian Chen may have an accident. It is extremely impossible for a person like this to be able to carry so many top-level heaven-level weapons casually if he does not come from some hidden superpower. Boy, are you really willing to risk your life? The people in Jiantum did not expect that Xian Chen would continue to follow the price like this, and for a while they were full of doubts about people like Xian Chen. After all, this feeling is too blatant. Although their sword tombs are not very active in the world, the legends in the world make the people of their sword tombs extremely noble. Looking at this young man, the special envoy of the sword tomb took a deep breath, and said to Xian Chen in a serious voice, "Boy, to be honest, this stone tablet is the tombstone of one of our sword tomb ancestors. If you get it, it definitely can't be opened. After all, only the people from sword tomb can open this tombstone." Xian Chen looked at the middle-aged man in shock and embarrassment. He did not expect that such an attractive thing would be a tombstone. Xian Chen, who had a strange expression on his face, took a deep look at the man. He had just come out to hang out of boredom. If he could form a fate with the people from Jiantum, this would be the best thing. Then it depends on what you do. Xian Chen regained his composure and sent a message to reply to the other party. The special envoy of the sword tomb frowned slightly, hesitated for a moment, and said to Xian Chen, "If I am willing to give in, when the ruins are opened, how about we be willing to give you a chance?" The Opportunity of Sword Tomb. The Strongest Husband of Dopo. Author, Hui Bai Xiong. Chapter 208. Did I hear you correctly? The people from Sword Tomb are actually willing to share the opportunity with that young man? Do any of you know the origin of that young man? I don't know, this young man has never seen his face before, but judging from the looks in the eyes of those Xin Chen sect disciples, maybe that young man has a close relationship with the Xin Chen section. Eh? Isn't that Fairy Yaokai from Xin Chen sect? She actually appears here. She is really a rare visitor. As a well-known female disciple of Xin Chen sect, Fairy Yaokai seems to have a good relationship with that strange young man. I remember that Fairy Yaokai was engaged to Xiangmu of the Xiang family, wasn't she? Those people were talking a lot, and those on the third floor could naturally hear it clearly. Although the Xiang family has an unspeakable hatred relationship with Xian Chen, it does not mean that everyone in the Xiang family is a fool. To be valued by the people of Jiantum, this level is no longer easily comparable to that of the Xiang family. Xiang Fei frowned and said to the clansmen behind him, "Not only does Xian Chen have a background in the Xin Chen sect, but now he is also favored by Senior Jiantum. He is no longer someone that our Xiang family can easily provoke." "Brother Fei, what should we do about Brother Mu's death?" a member of the Xiang family asked in confusion. Xiang Mu's status in the Xiang family is naturally extremely noble. If Xiang Fei lets Xian Chen go today, then all the Xiang family members who came to participate in the auction today will definitely be beaten when they return to the family. Xiang Fei exhaled a deep breath, with a sad look on his face, and said lightly, "Our Xiang family is not yet at the point where we need the younger generation to come forward to solve the problem. If you want to die, you can try it yourself now." "Haha, Brother Fei said so, how dare we, the followers?" These clan leaders explained one after another that although Xiang Fei wanted to scold them severely when looking at these unsatisfactory clan members, but when he thought about himself, he felt the same way. "Xiner, we can announce the auction results." Mr. Wu was naturally very satisfied with the results. After all, this situation would not make it difficult for the Lu family to survive. The special envoy of Jiantum looked back at the entourage behind him and saw a man in black leaping towards the third floor and landing steadily next to the person named Xiner. Xiner looked at the sword-grave man whose whole body was pitch black with only his eyes exposed, and was naturally shocked by the strong aura emanating from him. "Girl," the man in black said coldly, and then Xiner raised the silver hammer and knocked it down hard against the chopping board. I declare, today's recipient of the stone tablet is Sword Tomb. Wow! The supposedly quiet hall suddenly burst into discussion again. However, after the person from the Sword Tomb took out a crystal card that exuded purple gold light, the people who were talking about it all stopped talking. There are 1 billion gold coins in this crystal card. You will not suffer any loss, the man in black said coldly. The price of 1 billion is enough to be called a sky-high price. Xiner took the crystal card with trembling hands, and many strong men with Dosheng strength in the Lu family protected it backstage. Those sitting in the hall got up. After all, with the auction results of the stone tablet, they had no reason to stay here. Looking at the pedestrians leaving, Mr. Wu said a few words in Lu Lin's ear, and Lu Lin then shouted loudly and softly to the people below, "Dear guests, don't leave in a hurry. Our Lu family has just obtained an intermediate level weapon with a heavenly rank. The weapons need to be auctioned. Heaven level intermediate sword. Although this kind of sword is regarded as a dispensable thing in the eyes of the big forces in the upper world, in the eyes of small and medium-sized families, in times of crisis, it is a killing move that is enough to save lives." They sat back on the chairs again, and Lu Lin walked quickly onto the auction stage. She bit her lips affectionately, and then raised her jade hand, followed closely by an elder of the Lu family who had 4 stars of Dosheng, holding a 3-pointed, 2-edged sword that exuded the aura of death appeared. This weapon actually has such a terrifying aura. Oh my god, what a terrifying person the original owner of this weapon was. You must know that this weapon can exude such a murderous aura, it must be owned by someone who is very warlike. Well, my Rokuro happens to be good at using this kind of weapon. If it can be auctioned back, Rokuro will definitely be very happy. This is a medium-sized powerful family sitting on the 2nd floor, looking at the momentum of the 3-pointed 2-edged sword, and naturally wanted to auction it back. This 3-pointed 2-edged sword. Xiangfei frowned. He was also a good user of this weapon. Seeing the appearance of that weapon, he was naturally extremely excited. The tribesmen around them all saw what Xiangfei was thinking, so someone suggested speaking up and said, "Brother Fei, why don't you and I help you raise the money to buy him?" "Then thank you, brothers." Xiangfei breathed a sigh of relief. However, among the disciples of the Star sect, there are no people who like to use this kind of weapon, so not many of them are cold to it. Fairy Yaokai looked at such a lively scene and said softly to Xian Chen, "I didn't expect that this 3-pointed 2-edged sword could attract so many people's attention." Lin Fengjia heard it clearly, and with a suspicious look on his face, he couldn't believe that this was what Fairy Yaokai would say. Looking at Xian Chen with a calm face, Lin Fengjia thought of the head-on confrontation between Xian Chen and the Jiantum man in front of him, and a bold assumption suddenly arose in his heart. After all, it cannot be said that there are no people who can become the inner disciples of Xin Chen sect with Dozun's primary level strength, but at least there are none for now. "Xian Chen, are you interested in this 3-pointed 2-edged sword? If you are interested, I am willing to help you clear the way." The special envoy of the Sword Tomb looked at Xian Chen with a curious expression. However, Xian Chen raised a slight arc at the corner of his mouth, and said lightly to the successor of Sword Tomb, "I accept the kindness of my senior, it's just that compared to this 3-pointed 2-edged sword, I hope to have the opportunity to go to my senior's side." Trip. The special envoy of the Sword Tomb frowned, took a deep look at Xian Chen, and then took off a sword-shaped jade pendant from his waist. Throwing it into Xian Chen's arms, he said calmly, "After the secret is unlocked, our church will send someone to find you. By then, this jade pendant will be a token of your connection." "Thank you, Senior." Xian Chen cupped his fists and thanked him. He was not curious about what was hidden in the stone tablet. With the system, he already seemed to have something known to the whole world. So for Xian Chen, he just regarded the opportunities in the stone tablet as tourist attractions. If the hall master of Jiantum knew that Xian Chen's purpose was just to travel, I'm afraid he would be so angry that he would slap Xian Chen. Everyone must be aware of the value of this heaven-level intermediate weapon. The starting price is 3 million. Although 3 million seems to be a low starting point, after all, this kind of thing is often priced and marketable, but for these people, it is naturally the best to encounter it. 4 million. 5 million. 6 million. Prices are rising all the way, not like the previous ones. After the bidding reached 18 million gold coins, many families chose to give up. After all, compared to the stone tablet, this mid-level weapon of heaven level is really a hot potato for forces like them. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Strongest Husband of Dopo. Author, Hui Bai Xiang. Chapter 209. The Xiang family wants this heavenly weapon. 20 million. Xiang Fei finally called out the price. After all, the feeling this three-pointed two-edged sword brought to him was too special. If he can really possess this kind of weapon, then he is absolutely confident that his strength will reach a higher level. Along with his bidding, it can be said that those small and medium-sized forces hated him to the core. After all, considering the strength of the Xiang family, they would definitely not dare to provoke him at will. Xiang Fei looked at those who were dissatisfied with him, but there was a happy smile on his face. After all, this feeling of you wanting to punish me but not daring to punish me is often too comfortable. Isn't this person from this family invited by the auction to intentionally raise the price? Who knows about this kind of transaction between families? Sigh, it's a pity that the three-pointed two-edged sword, if I could obtain it, my Rokuro would definitely understand what my old father meant. These people were talking a lot, and Xiang Fei's action indeed left many forces behind. Sometimes it's not because of financial constraints, but more simply because of fear of the Xiang family's strength. It is a common fact that small families offend big families and then suffer unbearable blows. Haha, isn't the price of 20 million for this magical weapon too low? Hey Xiang Mu, I will add 10 million more. If you can beat me, I will give up this three-pointed two-edged sword. How about you? Lin Fengzhi turned his nose and asked Xiang Fei, who was not far away. Xiang Fei was so angry that he didn't get angry on the spot. Looking at Lin Fengzhi with a proud look on his face, Xiang Fei suddenly thought of something, so he warned angrily, "Haha, don't forget, one of our Xiang family members has joined your star section." Have people from the Xiang family joined our star sect? Lin Fengzhi raised his brows, but a person's name suddenly appeared in his mind. Thinking of that person's name, Lin Fengzhi's facial muscles couldn't help but twitch. You are talking about Xiang Yu, right? But I'm sorry, Xiang Yu seems to have said that he will break up with your Xiang family. Fairy Yaokai spoke softly, with a tender look on her face that made many people feel a little obsessed. Seeing that he was exposed, Xiang Fei was so angry that he screamed. As the saying goes, not steaming steamed buns to gain reputation. Xiang Fei, who had already lost face once, would certainly not be able to lose face again. Pretending to be vicious, he said fiercely to Lin Fengzhi and others, 35 million, this is my final price. I think everyone in the Lu family doesn't want to watch this happen, right? Those hiding in the dark whispered to each other, and then several elders of the Lu family walked into the third floor from the secret room. However, when these elders saw Mr. Wu sitting in the box, their expressions changed. Mr. Wu, it's not a good thing to continue the auction like this. We won't start a conflict with the Xiang family in advance over a weapon. A middle-aged man asked respectfully to Mr. Wu. Mr. Wu raised his eyes and glanced at him. He hesitated for a moment before replying, "It is a well-known fact that the Xiang family and my Lu family have always been at odds. Since he doesn't want it, naturally someone will want it." Understood. The middle-aged man nodded and led the people back to the backstage position. After all, Mr. Wu's right to speak also plays a decisive role in this auction house. Although they all possess the strength of fighting saints, they are not enough to prove anything in this mixed upper realm. Sigh, I didn't expect that this lousy dosage wouldn't even have the right to speak. Xian Chen looked at the middle-aged dosage who was respectful to Mr. Wu from beginning to end, and couldn't help but feel a little sorry for him. After all, such a person would definitely be a hero in the Doqi continent of the lower world. With Xiang Fei's one price sale, those who wanted to auction were also deeply in a state of self-doubt. Does anyone else need to bid? If not, then the winner of this heaven-level intermediate weapon must be Mr. Xiang Fei. Lu Lin saw that the matter was not too big, and immediately shouted out, and asked those some people who want to give up are ready to do something. Naturally, people like them cannot let go of the temptation of this heaven-level intermediate weapon easily. My Liaolang needs this three-pointed two-edged sword. I will pay 40 million. I hope Mr. Xiang Fei can give my Yang family some face. The middle-aged man sitting on the second floor did not forget to call out the price. He looked up at Xiang Fei. Under the middle-aged gaze, Xiang Fei felt his cheeks burning. He was so angry that he gritted his teeth. 45 million, very good, you successfully attracted my attention. Xiang Fei said angrily, frightening the middle-aged man to take a few steps back. Although his middle-aged age and status in the world far surpass Xiang Fei, if we look at the family power, the Yang family is obviously not qualified for a behemoth like the Xiang family. I give up. The head of the Yang family chose to give up. Xiang Fei got the three-pointed two-edged knife as he wished. Holding the three-pointed two-edged knife tightly, Xiang Fei felt as if he was already superior to others in the crowd. Haha, congratulations. Although Lin Fengji said congratulations, in his heart he scolded Xiang Fei from beginning to end. And Xiang Fei obtained the treasure. As the saying goes, don't hit the smiling person. Naturally, Xiang Fei would not be stupid enough to choose to quarrel with Lin Fengji at this time. However, at this moment, Lu Lin, who was standing on the auction stage, clapped her hands and shouted to the people below, in order to make up for the regrets in your hearts, the Lord decided to take out another weapon for auction. The weapon this time is Fang Tian's painted halberd, which is an intermediate heaven-level weapon. What? Xiang Fei looked at the dark weapon and instantly felt that the three-pointed two-edged sword in his hand was no longer fragrant. When Xiang Fei was extremely angry and wanted to curse, he suddenly thought of the adult Lu Lin mentioned. A person who can take out two heaven-level intermediate weapons at once is not something that Xiang Fei, a mere Xiang Fei, can mess with at will. As if he had suffered a loss, Xiang Fei did not want to leave a regretful expression on Fang Tian Huaji, so Gu Cai led his tribe to leave. After a series of crazy bidding, the Yang family member from the second floor finally got his wish and succeeded in the auction. The people from Sword Tomb have taken away the stone tablet. I think the task has been completed. How about returning to the sect? Fairy Yaokai asked Xian Chen. Xian Chen nodded and left with Fairy Yaokai. Lin Fengji saw the two of them preparing to leave, so he quickly stepped forward and stretched out his hand to stop them. He looked at Xian Chen with a solemn expression. He was silent for a long time and then said seriously to Xian Chen, "Are you the person behind those weapons? You are overthinking. How could a person like me be able to produce so many intermediate level weapons at one time?" Xian Chen looked at him like a fool, making Lin Fengji feel extremely embarrassed. That's okay. Lin Fengji touched his nose awkwardly, looked at the backs of them leaving, and then said seriously to a young man behind him, "If you investigate this kid's background, you can gain Yaokai's appreciation. This kind of person, if not with such a terrifying background, Lin Fengji, will definitely not believe it." The Strongest Husband of Dopo. Author, Hui Bai Xiong. Chapter 210. Brother Fei is afraid that the boy will pretend to be a pig and eat the tiger. The young man behind him frowned and asked, but Xiang Fei was silent for a long time before he replied abruptly, "I'm afraid that the boy will be a tiger in the end, and we are the ones who a pig. After leaving the auction, Fairy Yaokai immediately opened the space crack, so she skillfully grabbed Suinkan's arm and stepped inside. This kind of behavior can be said to have attracted the attention of a large number of people. However, although those people are extremely jealous and envious, considering their status. Facing a beautiful girl like the Yaokai fairy, they can only watch from a distance silently, not myopia. A loft in the star sect used to receive and submit tasks. The appearance of Fairy Yaokai and Xianchen can be said to have attracted the attention of many people. After walking into the attic, a white-haired old man noticed Fairy Yaokai, so he walked out from behind the counter, frowned at Fairy Yaokai and said, "The mission is completed? You must know that the mission you took is an S-level mission within the sect." Fairy Yaokai did not speak, but delivered the ball containing Yu Jianyuan's true soul to the old man. Seeing that there was an extremely huge power in this ball, the old man was silent for a moment, and then he said happily to Yaokai, "Since the mission has been completed, I wonder what kind of reward you want?" The amiable expression on the old man's face made Xianchen suddenly think of his relatives far away on Earth. "I would like to arrange a room for this junior brother," Fairy Yaokai said with a smile, which made the old man suddenly confused. According to the power of Xin Chen sect, there is absolutely no need to think about arranging a room for a disciple. Now this Yaokai fairy did not hesitate to use the S-level mission reward in exchange for a room. This was what shocked the old man the most. The silent old man took a deep look at the young man next to Yaokai. After making sure, he began to look for the remaining information on the house. "There is a house 500 meters away from where you live. That house was originally built for Wang Hu, but it was a pity that he was killed when he went out for training." As the old man spoke, he took out rows of keys from the drawer, then spotted one of them and handed it to Xianchen. Xianchen took the key. Yaokai put his hand on Suinkan's shoulder, and said with a smile, "You have to practice hard for me, because I still have some things to do to find the master, so I won't accompany you." "Then how should I find my own house?" Xianchen looked at Yaokai in confusion. "I have to say that this girl's smile was beautiful. You don't have to worry about this, I will naturally find someone to help you." The old man watched the relationship between the two people with a calm face. When he saw the young man saying such words, he immediately knocked on Ling Ai on the table, and then a young figure opened the curtain and walked out. "The boy has fair skin and a delicate face, and he will definitely grow up to be a rare handsome man." "Grandpa," the young man spoke quietly to the old man. The old man nodded, pointed at Xianchen, and said lightly, "Take him to his residence to see it, it's near where Yaokai lives." The young man frowned slightly, and when he noticed Yaokai, he ran to Yaokai with a cute smile on his face. "Sister Yaokai, why haven't you come to play with Liner for a long time?" This young man is about 11 or 12 years old. It's not too much to call Fairy Yaokai sister. Yaokai reached out and put his hand on the young man's head, and said with a faint smile, "Liner is good, my sister is always asking for trouble every day, will you agree to your sister's permission this time to take this brother to live with him?" "Well, don't worry, sister, Liner will definitely complete the task given by sister." The young man raised his head and smiled. The sunny smile made people feel a lot better. Yaokai left with 3 steps and 2 turns, and then the young man led Xianchen to the place where he lived. Along the way, the young man asked Xianchen a lot about how he knew Yaokai, and also asked Xianchen a lot about his views on Yaokai. All in all, the young man seemed to be playing the role of brother-in-law along the way. After an unknown amount of time, Xianchen came to a place where birds were singing and flowers were fragrant. Looking at the small courtyard surrounded by ivy, Xianchen was stunned. With a confused look on his face, he probably never imagined that he would live on such a forest trail. Looking at the cicada and hares that occasionally appeared, the boy beside him said with a smile, "Sister Yaokai's house is to the north of you. Because the distance is relatively close, it only takes a while to find Sister Yaokai. Xianchen didn't understand why Yaokai arranged it like this, but since it was arranged by Yaokai, it must be Yaokai's own intention. The key opened the lock. Seeing that the independent courtyard in the house was covered with grass, Xianchen, who was a little confused, asked the young Liner with a suspicious look, "Isn't there anyone cleaning this house? This green patch, it's quite refreshing to look at." Xianchen spoke without conscience. Liner touched his nose and replied with an embarrassed look on his face, "The houses in Xin Chen sect must be cleaned by individuals. If brother Xianchen wants to live in a good environment, you have to do it yourself." The young man may seem innocent, but in reality, there are very few truly good people who can be retained in the star sect. "Then I understand." Xianchen exhaled lightly. Cleaning the yard and house is naturally not a difficult task for Xianchen, who has a system. After watching Liner leave, Xianchen used the system template to purchase a few maid servants, and then began to order them to clean and tidy up the house that had not been dealt with for many years. These people seemed to be emotionless machines, and Xianchen noticed all of them who were cleaning diligently. Since it is an independent courtyard, the area of the house surrounded by walls is naturally large. It is like the furnishings of a courtyard in the capital, which looks low-key, luxurious, and connotative. After an unknown amount of time, Xianchen was lying on the rocking chair basking in the sun. At this moment, several figures appeared outside the door. Seeing those guys carrying large and small packages of gifts, Xianchen looked at them with confusion. Those people walked in with smiles on their faces, and when they saw that Xianchen had noticed them, the leader clasped his fists at Xianchen and apologized. "Oh my, the place where junior brother Xianchen lives is really the envy of brother Wei. It's so tight. Why are you here?" Looking at the bright smile like a chrysanthemum, Xianchen didn't have much hostility towards Lin Fengjie. After all, Fairy Yaokai is so beautiful and has many suitors, which is also a very easy thing to understand. Lin Fengjie scratched his head, hesitated for a moment, and then continued, "To be honest, I came to visit this time to ask junior brother Xianchen to buy a heaven-level intermediate weapon." "Heaven-level intermediate weapon? Look at those gifts." A proud look appeared on Suankin's face, and the two of them were in a tacit understanding. Xianchen naturally knew that the other party must have noticed something from him during the auction. "Okay, what type do you want?" Xianchen asked calmly, but Lin Fengjie said in shock, "What? Can you choose the type of this weapon?"